it. I've got some tips that you'll thank me for later about what to do in that moment when you get that notification that you've been laid off. Now, the good news is, um, right now it's all happening virtually, so you can fall apart and nobody will even see you. But what I want all of you to know, if you haven't been laid off but you're afraid of it, in that moment when you get that phone call, when you get that email, you are under no obligation to discuss everything right then and there. So give yourself a break, give yourself permission to sleep on it, to take a walk, to call your support network, whatever it is. I also am going to introduce you to 24 questions that you really should ask HR or your boss. And for those of you that haven't been through it yet, great. For those of you that have, don't worry. There are a lot of questions that you can circle back and ask after the fact. All right. um, what to do at work when you get that notice, then what to do at home. And then we'll talk about the best way, or one of the best ways, to approach your job search. Again, I am all about helping you get that dream job faster and easier. I want to help you avoid some of the biggest mistakes that job seekers make and help you keep your energy and your spirits up in the middle of, well, a tough thing. Layoff is tough. I get it. You get it. So let's talk about it and then help beyond a day. Oh, and we've got a special guest. So Art kicked us off today, and he's out of the Duluth CareerForce location, and he's a manager there and leads a lot of efforts online and so forth. And we've got a special guest north of Bemidji. Mhm. Angel Hartel will be joining us as we wrap things up to talk about all the wonderful resources that are available beyond the webinar today. So if you can, hang on for definitely that full hour, and then I will be staying on for another 10 or 15 minutes to take questions. So if you've got questions, bring those on also. By the way, in case you guys didn't see it as you were logging on, I like to share who's hiring. And I've got two companies that I know of that have texted me or emailed me today who are looking to hire. So I'll share those again a little bit later as we go on. One is the long-term care group, and one is Thrivent Financial. So what to do when the layoff happens? As I said, when you get that phone call or you get that email, listen. Take notes if you feel like it. If you don't, just say, thanks very much. Can we talk tomorrow? And literally give yourself permission to walk away, drop the mic, fall apart, get angry, get happy. Some people are happy when they get laid off. I'm just saying, whatever you need to go through emotionally, you do not have to do that on the phone or over Zoom with HR or your boss. So give yourself permission to take a break, sleep on it, and schedule a time when you can come back and walk through the paperwork and the exit strategy with, again, either HR or your boss. Okay, so that's first of all. Second of all, I just want to quickly tee up some questions that are really important for you to ask because you know what? Some things are negotiable. Did you know that? You don't have to just blindly accept their terms. You can go back in and negotiate, and some companies will be flexible with you on things like end date, being able to carry your health insurance over for a little bit longer, portability of benefits, retirement plans. You may not need to roll them out immediately. Lots of different things that vary dramatically based on number one, your courage to ask for it. Number two, who the boss is. Number three, who the HR person is. And number four, what the company policy is. Number five, what the state policy is here in this good state of Minnesota when you talk about severance and unemployment and all of those things. So there are a lot of variables. I also want to let you know that the people on the company side of the desk may not have a lot of experience with this. In fact, you may be the first round of employees that they've ever had to lay off. What does that mean? Well, they're probably an emotional wreck. I can tell you the first time I had to lay somebody off, I basically I basically cried the whole weekend beforehand, and I'm embarrassed to tell you, I actually cried when I had to tell Bob that his position was eliminated. It wasn't good for him. It wasn't good for me. It was just awful. So just know that it may not feel good because the person who's doing it may have no experience and they may be absolutely freaking out on the inside. The other thing that I want you to know about layoffs is the people that are laying you off may have no idea about CareerForce, Deed, dislocated worker, Some don't even know about unemployment insurance, if you can believe that. It's the truth. And so never assume that they know what they're doing and they're just shortchanging you. They may literally have no idea what's available to you. So that's why we're here. We're here to tell you what's available so you can take full advantage and hopefully go back and negotiate a couple of things. So let me just quickly run through a few of the questions. What I do want you all to know is at the end of the webinar today, or actually the end of the day today, Art is going to send you a follow-up email with a link to the webinar replay. So if you want to go watch it again, you sure can. A free guide. I'm giving you my free guide. It's actually a 24-page guide called Laid Off, Now What? And it takes a deep dive in everything that we're going to talk about today. Exercises, templates, checklists, guides, ideas, it's all in there. So what I want you to focus on today is your light bulb moments. As I'm chatting, as we're chatting, because I'm going to have discussions with you, I want you to jot down and take notes on those things that you think, oh my gosh, I want to do that. Or, ooh, I want to learn more about that. Or I really want to reach out to CareerForce. Whatever it is, I want you to take notes on your, basically, your light bulb moments and your to-do items. I also want you to chat away on the questions that you've got, questions and comments, celebrations, whatever it is. That's why we're chatting live today. And Art and Angel are moderating for me, so they'll shoot your questions and things my way. All right, so when you get laid off, before you sign the paperwork, and if you've already signed the paperwork, forgive yourself, maybe go back and ask a couple of these questions, because I bet you they didn't answer all of them. Can you believe there are 24 things you need to know? There are 24 things you need to know. Top level, here they are. First of all, what's the reason for my termination? Now, we can all pretty well assume that it's COVID-19, but let me tell you something. You don't want to be out in a job search and have a prospective employer call your former employer expecting to hear that you were terminated because of COVID-19, and all of a sudden what comes out of the person's mouth is something entirely different. You don't want that to be a surprise to your next employer. You want to find out the good, the bad, and the not so pretty so that you can deal with it and challenge it and say, that is not fair. That is not, I'm going to challenge that, whatever it is. So ask them, what is the reason for termination? Is it a furlough? Is it a layoff? Those things affect what resources are available to you on the state and federal side also. Look at that. We've got a huge crowd today, 155. Welcome, welcome, and a few more rolling in. It's a good day to be a Minnesotan. Who else are you letting go? You want to just quickly find out, is it one person? Is it just you? Is it 500? It's handy to know that when you're interviewing for other positions because people are gonna ask you. All right. Are you eligible for rehire? Important to know. You may want to go back to work if you can with them. You may not. And literally ask the question, what will you tell my next employer if I give them your name as a reference? It's important for you to know what they're going to say. It's important for you to know if they'll even give you a reference. Some companies have a policy against giving references, and it's really embarrassing for you to list somebody on a reference and the person who wants to hire you makes that phone call and they get shut down. That's awful for everybody. Makes you look bad, makes your next employer feel bad. Don't let that happen. Literally ask that question. Will you give me a good reference? And they might say, we will tell them the dates of employment. We will not tell them anything about your work quality. If that's the case, scratch them off your list. Don't list them as a reference. By the way, this is off topic for the webinar today, but I can't resist. The recruiter in me cannot resist. You need to prep your references. Before you ever give out reference names for somebody to call, you got to call your references. Alert them to who the company is, what the job is, ask them what they think about you for that position. I'll tell you what is awful is if somebody that knows you and loves you and wants you to get that job isn't expecting a phone call from a recruiter or a hiring manager. If they pick up the phone, they're on a busy day, the baby's diaper is poopy, they're still working from home, they take a phone call from somebody they aren't expecting, and that person says, hey, I'm talking with Jerome about a job at ABC Company, and he wants to be a freight operator for us. If you're not expecting that phone call, and Jerome has never been a freight operator, you might in the heat of the moment say, what? A freight operator? Are you kidding me? Now, that would just be a genuine response because you weren't expecting it. Not a good impression on your potential employer. you have to call your references and prep them, okay? Please. I could tell you so many stories of people who have lost job offers just because their references were caught cold. All right, back on track here. Um, will you approve my claim if I file for unemployment? This is one of those questions. Just because they said it's a layoff doesn't mean that they are going to approve unemployment, and they got to approve it for you to be able to claim unemployment. You got to ask these questions, even though they're a little uncomfortable. Who cares? You got to take care of yourself. What will be the last day that you will pay me? Now, surprise, surprise. Some companies will terminate you, and that's your last paycheck on that day. Other employers are trying to give you a little bit of cushion, and they may pay you for another 2 weeks. Maybe they're giving you 3 months' notice. I don't know. You have to ask the question, what is your last day going to be? Some companies offer severance, which means your last day is today, but we're going to pay you 1 week paycheck for every year of service. And you may be staring, lucky you, doesn't happen very often these days, but lucky you if it does, you may be staring at a 3 month severance check. You better find out if that employer is going to have you on the books as an employee or if they're going to consider you terminated, because that can affect your benefits. So you get the idea. There are a lot of little nitpicky questions that you need to ask because it might affect your unemployment benefits and your other benefits. It might affect your future employment. What other top level? Oh, non-compete. For those of you that are director level, salespeople, recruiters, you know what I'm talking about. You probably signed a non-compete agreement when you took the job. It's general practice when you lay an employee off through no fault of their own. It's general practice for an employer to waive that non-compete and let you go work at a competitor. But there are some companies that don't really want to let you go, and certainly don't want you working at a competitor, and they might ignore that non-compete and expect you to abide by that. Oh, no, 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 no. You need to get them to, in writing, release you from that non-compete. What else do I think is really important? Let me jump to the next slide. Let's see what else pops out at me. And again, all of these questions are in that free guide that you will get via email from Art at the end of the day today. How are you going to pay me out for my unused vacation or sick time? I want you to repeat after me. I will assume that I'm going to get paid out for everything they owe me. Yep, screaming at your computer. I'm going to assume that they're going to pay me out for everything they owe me. Unused vacation, bonuses, commissions, all of it. Now, if a company is going belly up, that's tricky if they're literally out of money, but you can certainly ask for it, all right? How are you going to pay out my commissions and bonuses? What about benefits? You need to ask about health insurance, life insurance, disability, retirement plans. You need to ask this boring stuff that's really important. Some companies can afford and will let you maintain your health insurance with them until you get another job. That's highly unusual, but ask the question because that's probably going to be cheaper for you than going through Cobra or shopping out on the open market. Ask the question, okay? Retirement plans, if you have any retirement plans, you need to know, are they going to cash it out and send you a check? If so, stop that. Do not let them cash out your 401k. You will incur an early penalty, withdrawal, and tax implications. Don't do that. Get some professional advice from a certified financial advisor about how to handle your retirement plans. Some companies will let you leave your money there, which is okay for the short term, but you ultimately want to get your money out of that company and into your own management place where you can manage those things. All right, I'm getting in the weeds here, but you get the idea. You got a lot of questions you need to ask a day or two after you get the phone call, okay? All right, questions. Are there any questions? Let me look down here. I see lots of hello, hello. All right, Scott, a friend of mine just moved to, is it Winona or is it Winona? I always thought it was in Winona, and then Winona Ryder went and did this whole ad, and I don't know what to call it now. So is it Winona or is it Winona? So hello to Winona. Lost a really good friend. He took a job as a CIO at a bank there in your town. Kimberly Kimberly has a question. Her current employer furloughed her. She has not told her that her contract is canceled. However, she hasn't paid her for the first few months. And now she tells me I have to enter my time in an Oracle database. What? I think a phone call is in order, Kimberly, and maybe actually a Skype or a Zoom or FaceTime with her to look her in the eyeballs and ask her what's going on. I don't know what she's up to. It's possible that she got a PPP loan. Now, let's just assume she's completely above board. But companies, small companies who took advantage of the CARES Act PPP loan need to spend that money on their employees. I don't know what all the nitty-gritty details are, but you need to ask her eyeball to eyeball if you can, what is going on and why on earth are you entering time in the Oracle database if you aren't getting paid? My thoughts are no way, absolutely not. If you haven't gotten paid, you are not entering any time in any database unless you've been working and she says she's going to pay you. Call her, all right? Assume good intentions, but you got to find out what's going on. And Melissa understands that most former employers cannot tell future employers that you were terminated. True. Most employers, most former employers are going to shut their trap. And all they're going to do with a reference check is say, yep, she worked here from this date to this date, and that's it. If you got terminated for cause and it was an icky situation, that's probably a good thing. But if you're trying to get a new job, you need a couple of references who are going to sing your praises. And so you're going to have to get creative and personally reach out via LinkedIn, phone call, email, Facebook, I don't care how. Personally reach out to your former boss, former coworkers, and ask them informally to give you references. You can also ask them to write recommendations for you on LinkedIn. So you're right, Melissa. Most mid and big sized companies refuse to give reference checks because they don't want to get sued. I know it's frustrating. All right, Michael, by the way, non-compete is not valid in California, right? You know what, Michael? It depends on what non-compete you signed. I have signed a lot of non-competes in my career as a recruiter and a salesperson and a director. And the higher up I got in the pecking order, the more restrictive it got. And I did sign a non-compete that would not let me go to work for a competitor in the United States of America. Ouch, right? So you actually need to go and pull your employment agreement and read the fine print in your non-compete, ask them to waive it. And if they won't waive it, you may need to go get a lawyer if it's going to restrict you from doing work elsewhere and they laid you off through no fault of your own. Winona. Oh, good, good. Glad to know it. Thank you, Cheryl. All right, great questions. Keep them coming. I'm going to do my best to get to all your questions and cover all the content. So let's see how I can do today. When you accept an offer and the new company's HR calls the old company to determine that you worked there, can they confirm salary? It depends on who you ask. They can't disclose salary, but generally, legally, if they say, Suresh has said that her salary was 42,000, 92,000, is that correct? Companies are usually able to verify something, but most won't. So I don't know quite where you're going with that, but let me just give you guys the 911 on telling the truth. I do not like that companies ask you for your past salary history. It really shouldn't be any of their business, and it shouldn't have any bearing on what they pay you. They should pay you based on market value and the work that you're going to do. I say that out of this side of my mouth, human being to human being. Now I'm going to tell you from the recruiting and manager side of my mouth that there's a reason companies always want to know about your past salary history. We don't have time to get into it here in a lot of detail, but let me just say they're trying to make sure that A, you're going to be happy. If you used to make 100K and you're taking a job at 75K, you're not going to be happy and you're going to quit as soon as you can make up that difference. Yeah, you probably are. They want to know that you're a flight risk. That's one of the reasons. They want to know what if you've been accustomed to bonuses, salaries, things like that. There are a lot of reasons why companies want to dig in and understand your compensation structure. They want to make sure that you're happy. They want to make sure they can afford you. And yes, of course, they want to get a good deal. They don't want to lowball you. If they pay you significantly under market, all of a sudden they're in huge danger of you quitting just a couple of months down the road. So they're going to ask about your past compensation. Tell the truth. Tell the truth when you get to that point. But I do want you to stall this. We're doing an interviewing. Um, no, I did an interviewing workshop last week, Online Job Club. Um, all right, I'll give you the quick and dirty on salary because you asked. When they ask you about salary in the very first conversation, I do want you to stall a little bit. That's the trick you should use. You should say, more than happy to talk with you about compensation. I'd like to understand a little bit more about that role before I tell you what I'm looking for in terms of salary. And by the way, what is your budget for this position? So I want you to smile, be polite, and push it back on them and find out more about the role and ask them what their budget is. What are they expecting to pay for this position before you tell them anything? But smart, wise recruiters and hiring managers are going to push you for a number. They're going to ask you what you're looking for because they don't want to waste their time or your time. All right, I see more questions down here, and I'm going to get to them, but let me jump into the meat of the details a little bit. We'll see how I go with questions as we go. All right, so next up, we talked about what to do in the moment when you get that phone call, the FedEx man knocks at your door, when you get the email, the notification that you've been laid off or furloughed. I want you to stop, breathe, and buy yourself a day or two to digest, to lick your wounds, to rally your support network, and then call them back with your agenda and your questions, okay? What I want you to do at home, I want you to start practicing radical self-care. What the heck do I mean? I mean, if you need to jump in your most comfy pair of sweats and not talk to anybody for 24 hours, that is your choice. I don't want you to go more than 24 hours, though. I want you to start reaching out to people as soon as possible. There are people in your life that know you and love you and support you, and they want to rise up to meet you and bring you dinner and commiserate with you and give you a shoulder to cry on. But if they don't know about it, they can't do that for you. So the first thing you need to do is reach out to other human beings, which is especially hard right now, right? With the stay-at-home orders, you're going to have to go out of your way to text, call, email, reach out to people. However, I want you to resist the urge of blasting your former employer on social media. Unfortunately, it's going to come back to bite you. Unfortunately, if you badmouth your former employer, even if he was a jerk, even if he was an absolute jerk on the way out, you'll only make yourself look bad, number one. And number two, guess who's going to see it? Your next boss is going to see everything you post online. So resist the urge to do anything publicly. Do it with your safe, close friends. Bark, cry, scream, laugh, celebrate, whatever it is. And I want you to start taking action every day to take care of yourself emotionally, physically, sleep, eat, exercise. I've been taking walks every single day. If I don't have time for the treadmill, I'm taking fast walks every single day to try and relieve some of the stress and anxiety around COVID-19. And I hope you're doing the same. Hopefully you're doing something more spirited than just walking, but that's all I can find time for right now. All right. Although gardening, I do like gardening. So let's chat a little bit. What are you doing for self-care right now? In the middle of COVID-19 and career transition, what are you doing to, I call it filling your gas tank? Keep yourself physically healthy. Keep yourself mentally healthy. What is working for you? Cooking. Terry, I'm coming on over. I love to eat. I don't like to cook, but fortunately my husband does. So that's been fun. We've been cooking with friends virtually. We literally set up 4 cameras in the kitchen and he cooked and he invited 4 other families to cook the same meal with him. It was like a cooking. It was like the Food Network, except it was a cook along. And then I was moderating chat. My teenage son was running the cameras. It was really very fun. Online classes and webinars. Margaret is learning. Oh my goodness. John got a puppy. You're braver than I am. Good for you. But you are home, so it's probably a good time. Abby was laid off in February prior to COVID-19, and she took a few weeks to read as many books as she possibly could. Wonderful. My husband got me 3 free months of ukulele lessons on Fender. Haven't had time to pick it up, but one of my teenage sons has picked up the ukulele. So there you go. Yoga, picking up a dusty guitar and biking, Routine. Joe Ellen has established a routine, getting out of bed at the same time every day and doing some regular things every day. Wonderful. Puzzles, great. Reading, inspiring books, wonderful. All right, so we've talked about what to do in the moment, what to do when you get home. Reach out to a network, radical self care. Now we got to talk about some unfun stuff, and that is money. Now, Zig Ziglar, dear old Zig Ziglar, may he rest in peace. He was a spectacular man and motivational speaker, and I had the pleasure of seeing him at the Target Center in the Twin Cities. Great, great guy. He said, money isn't the most important thing, but it is reasonably close to oxygen on the gotta have it scale. So, money. I want you to do a budget if you haven't already. Long story short, folks, the difference between freaking out and getting out of bed every day is feeling like you're in control of some things. I'm going to say that again. The difference between being able to get out of bed and go look for a job and not being able to is feeling that you have a little bit of control in your life. Now, let's be honest. In the middle of this coronavirus pandemic, there are a lot of things that are out of our control. That's why it is especially important for you to take control of your daily routine, doing some of your favorite things, filling your gas tank, and figuring out honestly what your money situation is. If you don't sit down and do a budget and figure out what's coming in and what's going out, I promise you, you're going to be freaked out and losing sleep and having nightmares over it. And some of you are going to be having nightmares that are bigger than they need to be. Once you do a budget, you might realize that you can cut expenses here, here, and here. You might be able to go and negotiate with a bunch of your creditors, call the mortgage company, negotiate a much lower mortgage payment while you're looking for work. Did you know some companies actually have a hardship department? You can call and say, hey, I got furloughed, not getting any paychecks right now. I'm going to reduce the payments. Will you work with me on it? Make sure you get it in writing. There are a lot of things that you can do to tighten your belt, cut your expenses, figure out what's happening on the last paycheck, your benefits, figure out all that stuff from your past employer, and then make sure that you take advantage of all of the resources, financial and otherwise, that are out there. I brought Robin Morton. I do free daily live streams just until we get out of our stay-at-home orders. I'm doing free 8 a.m. live streams. You guys are welcome to join me. You can find me at ourbez.com. Just click the live tab, and I'm there every morning at 8 a.m. And I'm bringing on some fabulous guests. I had Robin Morton with me this morning to talk about going through 2 layoffs. The first one was in the depths of the Great Recession, and the second one was about 4 years later. And one thing that she said is it was really, really, really important for her to cut her expenses, figure out how much money she really had, and start taking advantage of resources. CareerForce. If you qualify for the dislocated worker program, there's money for training. Let's say you need to get a couple of extra skills. They may be able to help you with gas money. They may. I don't know what their budgets look like right now. It varies from location to location, but I can tell you that your state of Minnesota, the feds and your state of Minnesota is working really, really, really hard to put more money in that bucket. I want you to take advantage of that. If you're really struggling financially, I want you to consider go take advantage of free meals, take advantage of free food coming from your local church and food bank. There is no shame on taking a leg up when you're going through a tough time, okay? Please, 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 you're not alone. And just as there are millions of people out of work right now, there are millions of others that are rising up to meet you and lift you up and help you get through. So take advantage of it, okay? Don't apologize. Mindset, we've already talked a little bit about things to do to boost your confidence, help you emotionally, help you stay strong and positive. Let me talk a little bit about that. You know, I didn't promise, but I'm going to promise you right now. Been at this 22 years. I've worked with thousands and thousands of people in career transition, and the one thing that I hang my hat on is being honest about what I know and what I've seen. And what I know and what I've seen is that if you get stuck in the fear and the anger, and you aren't able to let go of your anger, or your shame or any of those other sort of overwhelming emotions, if you can't break free from that and start to feel a little bit hopeful and start to focus on a brighter future, it's going to be really tough for you to get a job. Because unfortunately, when you're reaching out to companies and you're doing interviews and things, your energy level and your attitude carry a lot of weight. In fact, your energy and your attitude are more important than your skills. Been at this a long time. I was on the hiring side of the desk for about 12 years, and over and over and over again, I would watch two candidates, sometimes equally qualified, and the one who really wanted the job didn't act like it, but this one poured on some enthusiasm and some passion and some excitement. That's the one that got the job. Very, very often, I've watched people who are less qualified. They're missing some key skills, but if they're excited about the opportunity and they have a hopeful, positive mindset, and they're able to bring that to the interview, even if it's the only hour during the day that they can be positive and hopeful, that's okay. Bringing that positive attitude, that person will get hired over a more qualified candidate who is negative and angry and just a bad attitude. So, mindset, really, really important. I have a couple of ideas for you about how to boost your mindset, and I want to get other ideas from you about how do you shake that fear, anger, frustration, hopelessness? How do you shake it and get that positive? What works for you? I'm going to tell you what works for me and has worked for thousands of other people. Find your champions. Right now, you've got limited energy. You need to reach out and surround yourself, pull them in, pull them close, those people that are hopeful and inspiring and supportive. And I need you to be busy when the negative Nelly calls. I am serious. You may not be able to unfriend her entirely, especially if it's your mom or your sister, but there may be some people in your life who are terrified, who are angry, and they want to drag you down into that deep, dark hole with them. You can't afford to go there. So be busy and surround yourself with positive people. I also want you to actively seek out people who know how good you are, believe in you, and are willing to not only boost your spirits on those ugly days, but introduce you to their network. I call them champions. This is the power of surrounding yourself with champions and people who have worked with you or are in your family or are neighbors or have volunteered with you. Let me share a story with you, and then we've got a story from Terry to share. Funny enough, another Terry came to me. She had been unemployed for over 6 months. She was mid 60s and she was convinced she was too old to get a job and nobody wanted to hire her because of her age. That is not what was happening at all. What was happening is she was completely scattered. She didn't know what she wanted to do. She was unfocused. She was applying online for all sorts of things, some of which she was qualified for, some of which she wasn't. She was getting more and more desperate. She didn't have a very positive attitude. There were a lot of challenges that she was having in her job search because she was tired after 6 months. And she came to me and said, I'm too old. Nobody's ever going to hire me. I don't know what to do. And I said, well, that might be what's going on, but let's kind of peel back the layers. Tell me what you've been up to. And I said, I have a question for you. Have you made a list of all of your former coworkers over the years and your favorite neighbors and people you go to church with and people that you volunteer at the fire department with? Have you made a list of all the people that you really like who like you? And then called them and told them that you need a new job. And she said, no, that's really uncomfortable. No, I don't want to let anybody know that I'm unemployed. Huh. Well, I convinced her that what she was doing wasn't working and she needed a new job and she could just humor me for 1 week. I said, just 1 week, get out of your comfort zone, make a list and start calling people. And you know what happened? She made 3 phone calls. She made 3 phone calls and she got a job offer on the third phone call. Jennifer got hired in 2 days by calling. So Terry got a job offer, her third phone call, and she was back at work in 2 weeks. Jennifer started calling people she used to work with, and she was back at work in 2 days. This is the power of calling your network. Incidentally, I'm thrilled we have people from all over Minnesota. I do live in the Twin Cities, but I want you to please know every single thing I'm talking about works in small towns. I grew up in a small town, s- throwing horse poop and baling hay. So I grew up dirty, Tonka truck, building fences, small towns. So I grew up like that, and I have helped people get jobs in small towns. There was one of my favorite projects in particular was Two Harbors, Minnesota, north of Duluth, very small town. And there'd been there were people there that had really good jobs with a Duluth-based health insurance company that got sold, and they lost their jobs, and they'd been out of work for over a year, and they just were convinced they were never going to work again. And I think there were about 12 of them that I worked with. This was a few years ago. And I went in there and we spent a day together, and I asked that question, have you made a list of everybody who knows how good you are? All your former coworkers in Two Harbors, Duluth, the cities, I don't care, people you used to work with, people who know you and love you. Do they know that you're unemployed? And do they know what you want to do next? And everybody in that room looked down and said, well, they were uncomfortable. And I said, get out your phones right now. I want you to make one phone call. And they did. They started calling people who knew them and loved them. And I think it was 3 weeks. Every single one of those folks was back to work. This little thing I'm telling you now is magic. And I know it's a little uncomfortable, but I know you can do it. All right. Terry had a story to share. She immediately wrote a thank you letter for an interview after being told she didn't get the job. Sneaky, sneaky. How did you know this was such a great thing to do, Terry? So Terry got rejected. They said, we don't want you. We're hiring somebody else. And she sent a thank you note that said, thanks for the opportunity. I hope that person works out. You know what? That more qualified candidate quickly quit after starting. And guess who they called? Their first phone call was Terry. And they said, oh my gosh, a little embarrassed. The person we hired instead of you quit. Are you still interested? Now, the only reason that they weren't too embarrassed to call Terry is that she had sent that note, she or he. Not quite sure if you're a she or a he. So that thank you letter did make all the difference. And I promise you, on the hiring side of the desk, I've been there so many times when we're down to 2 or 3 final candidates and we can't make a decision because we like all of them. And a handwritten thank you card drops out of the file. We pick it up and say, that's the person to hire. True stories over and over and over again. All right. Hello, Terry. All right. Thank you for sharing. 340. I'm talking too much. Find your champions. And then I also want you to find your inner warrior. Look at this tough little chick, right? She's fierce. She's brave. And then you know what's going to happen? She's going to get to middle school and she's going to experience mean girls. And then she's going to go to college and she's going to get rejected. And then she's going to go out into the big bad world. And all of a sudden, her confidence is going to go from this to this. One of the exercises that I do when I lose a huge amount of income in the middle of COVID-19, when I'm facing a presentation with a client that I really, really want. See, I'm a professional job hunter. As a small business owner, I'm out hunting for my next paycheck every single day, and I get nervous. And one of the first things I do is go back to times in my past when I've done something hard before. A lot of times I go back and think about similar projects, similar clients, to dust off sort of my success stories. But other times, that's not enough. Other times, I have to get into the really ugly, tough stuff of my life to remind myself when I was that small, I was living in an alcoholic home. 5 years old, I was begging my mother not to drive drunk. I didn't know how I was going to get through my childhood, but I did it. And sometimes that's the story that I need to remember to give myself the courage to do things. So you may not have a dramatic childhood story, but I guarantee you've done really hard things in your life. Maybe you paid your way through college. Maybe you survived a toxic boss. Maybe you got out of a bad marriage. I don't know, but you know. I actually encourage you to jot down some of your proudest success stories in your life. In fact, let's share in the comments if you're willing to share. I want you to share one of those things that you've accomplished in life that you're really proud of. I paid my own way through college and I'm debt free today. And it was really, really hard to get there, and I'm proud of it. What about you? You've all got stories. If you're willing to share, it would be great. And then, of course, any other ideas that you have to stay confident and strong right now. And then we're going to jump into the next section, which is what to do to kickstart that job search. Ha ha! Joseph is very proud that he convinced his wife to marry him. That's fantastic. Oh, Art, Terry is in Duluth and she's been to some of your classes. He's kind of a rock star, isn't he? I've never been in one of his classes, but I've heard things about him, and he's pretty darn great at moderating these job clubs online. Terry got out of a 16-year abusive marriage. She left it for the seventh time. She relocated to Duluth and started over and went to a class with Art. That is an inner warrior story. Terry, hold on to that and remember you have done hard things before. You are tough enough. You are strong enough. You can do this. All right. Oh, Derry Vinholi, your biggest success was becoming an American citizen after being here since 1985 and having all sorts of, probably a student visa and a worker visa. Congratulations, welcome. My mother was an immigrant from England. My husband is from another country. And so welcome, welcome, and congratulations. That immigration test was pretty darn hard. I'm not sure I could have passed it. All right, so let's just quickly jump into, you have so many resources to help you with your job search. I'm just going to scratch the surface. Today was really about focusing on what to do immediately after getting laid off, and then how to get the courage and the mindset and just sort of to set your stage for success. So I'm going to quickly run through how to kickstart your job search. All right. And then it's time for you to meet Angel Hartel to talk about Help Beyond a Day. Incredible resources for you through Deed, through CareerForce Minnesota, through minnesotaworks.net. And she's going to introduce you to a lot of things that you didn't have a clue were out there to help you. But first, couple of tidbits for you about how to start your job search. The shortest distance between you and that dream job. It's simple, but you need a clean, organized space. You've got to be able to keep track of what jobs you're applying for, what you're interviewing for, what the next steps are in the process. Literally, if you apply for a job, you need to write it down. You need to keep a spreadsheet. What was the company? What was the job title? What was the requisition number? Literally, if you are applying online, there's a job order number, and you need to know that because you might get phone calls from multiple recruiters about different jobs at the same company. You really need to know which ones you applied for, who you talked to, on what date. It's important to keep track of all that. You also are going to, believe it or not, you're going to get phone calls. If you've got a resume that's good and a LinkedIn profile that's up to snuff, you will get phone calls from multiple recruiters about the same job. It's up to you to remember who submitted you first, because you don't want to get double submitted. All right, so get organized. Get organized. If you don't have a computer, find out if you can borrow one through your local library, maybe from a friend. You really need to have access to a computer to be able to update your resume, apply online when it gets to that, and some other sorts of things. So you can make do with a smartphone, but it's really pretty hard. You can definitely make do with an iPad or a tablet. Just see if you can borrow one from somebody during your job search, okay? Back to mindset a little bit. I want to just give you a tip about job search. There are a lot of things out of your control. COVID-19, stock market, economy, rotten job postings, hiring processes that are broken, recruiters that don't get back to you, networking connections that say they're going to introduce you and then they forget. I mean, lots of things that you can't control that you will lose sleep over. And if you let those things control you, before you know it, you're going to start to jump to some very damaging conclusions like, I'm too old, nobody wants to hire me. I'm too short. I'm too female. I'm not the right religion. I'm not the right race. You're going to start to jump to some conclusions that actually aren't what's happening. And so next time you're feeling overwhelmed, and it's going to happen, next time you're feeling overwhelmed, I want you to stop and take a breath, step back and ask yourself, I know I'm worried about age discrimination right now, but what's really going on? And there are 4 things that are much bigger barriers to your success, and they're all self-imposed. Are you ready? Number 1, lack of focus. You're spinning your wheels. You don't know where to spend your time, what to do when. You need to get a job target and you need a job hunt plan. You need to know what job you're going for. You need to know where you're most likely to find it, what people you want to talk to. You need a target and you need a plan, okay? Number one, get focused. Every day, you need to know what you're up to a little bit, at least to start your day. Number two, lack of action. If you aren't doing anything toward getting a job, guess what? You're going to get more and more anxious because you know you're not doing anything. And a lot of times it's because you don't know what to do. So figure out what job you want. And in the guide that you're getting from me, I actually give you a couple of exercises to help you figure out what that next job can be for you. Get focused, take action every single day. Even if it's not perfect action, just do something. Reach out to somebody, look online, reach out to CareerForce, call somebody you know, call somebody you don't know, do something. Fear and isolation. Those are the biggest killers. They will chain you to the ground. They will throw you back in bed. Fear of the unknown, fear of doing something wrong, fear of getting rejected, fear of failure. Man, as a kid, I couldn't wait to become a grown-up because I thought I wouldn't be afraid anymore. As grown-ups now, we know the monsters actually have names, don't we? Ay, ay, ay. All right. But I want you to identify what are you really afraid of and figure out how to deal with it. You know what? There are therapists that are doing sessions online. Do not be afraid to reach out and get a couple of reset sessions and reach out for some psychological help if you need it for your mental health. Okay. And isolation, I already said it. Don't do this alone. Reach out, reach out, reach out. Okay. And figure out what you want. Figure out what you want next. Figure out, can you get it right now? And don't give up on that dream. I've got lots of stories I'd love to share, but I'm watching the time and I want to get to your questions. Don't give up on your dream job until a real human being, actually multiple human beings, have told you that you can't get it. I could tell you hundreds of stories of people who were giving up on that dream job because they didn't think they were good enough. They didn't think they had enough experience. And lo and behold, they were qualified and they were able to get that job by referral or by transferring their skills or picking up a little bit of training through the TAA program or MFIP or dislocated worker. Don't give up until you know for sure that you're not qualified right now, okay? You need to separate your wants from your needs. Robin this morning was talking about layoffs, and she said she realized, oh my gosh, she actually didn't have to go out to eat with friends 3 days a week. I think all of us have realized that during the stay-at-home orders, right? We actually don't have to eat out all the time. We can afford to stay home, and it's kind of fun sometimes. There's another tool that I'm giving you in my layoff guide that, again, Art's going to send in a follow-up email. It's a scorecard. Long story short, in the depths of the recession, I lost 100% of my income. My dad had a stroke. My mother was bedridden. They moved in with me. I had 2 kids in diapers. Needless to say, I was freaked out and very, very afraid. And I was chasing all sorts of things, trying to find the money. And I was ineffective everywhere. I sat down and did a scorecard and figured out what are my priorities. And my priority were, I'm not going to travel. I have 2 babies at home and I have a mother who's dying and a dad who's recovering from a stroke. I can't travel. I also can't commute a whole bunch right now. So at the top of my list, above the money, was flexible schedule to take my dad to the hospital when he needed it and take care of my kids. Money was third on my list, but it wasn't number one. Your priorities are different than mine, and they're probably different right now than they were even last year. So take advantage of it. It's in that free guide. Do your own priority checklist and use it to evaluate what you want your next job to be. You may decide you want to become a freelancer or a consultant. I hope you'll consider it. A little tidbit for all of you. I've been in the consulting industry for 22 years. The first jobs that are going to start coming back in droves are going to be contract work. So if you've never considered freelance, gig, contract opportunities, this is the year for you to be open and consider it. A lot of times it's faster and easier to get a paycheck, and it'll give you an opportunity to get into a company, prove yourself, and flip it into a full-time job if that's what you really want. But watch out, you might discover you love consulting. A couple of things just to wrap up as we talk about Help Beyond a Day and Angel comes on with you. Faith got laid off in the middle of the recession. Her first job search took her 6 months. She got laid off a couple of years later and she thought, oh, I know what I'm doing this time around. And she tried to do it all by herself. That time it took her 7 months to get a job. The third time she said, stop the presses. Apparently, I don't really know how to find a job very effectively. Let me get some help here. And she started plugging into CareerForce. She came to the job club that I run in Eagan. Denise Schoberg runs it on a weekly basis, but I launched it 12 years ago. The Easter Job Transition Group, job clubs, CareerForce. She plugged into my online program and she really embraced this idea of making a list of people who know you and love you and calling them. She did that the third time she got laid off and she got a job offer in just 2.5 weeks. All right? So call people who know you and love you. Yes, now it's time. Once you've figured out what your target job is, you can write that resume not for your past boss, for your next boss, because that's who's reading your resume. Update your resume, update your LinkedIn profile. In my free guide, I actually give you some tips on how to write a fantastic resume for your future boss or your future client. And some tips. I give you the 10 essential elements to a LinkedIn profile. I do want to take your questions and comments. So right now, I want you to start chatting away. And when we get to the top of the hour and after Angel's shared all of the wonderful resources with you, I'll come back on and take your questions. Fire up that network, fire up that network, find your champions. Paul did it, and he had 12 interviews, 2 job offers in 2.5 weeks. And now you're ready to start looking for that job. So beyond today, as I said, you're going to get my free guide called Laid Off Now What? And it's going to do a deep dive on everything we talked about today. I do want to let you know I am so excited to be doing these online job clubs with Art and Angel and CareerForce across the state of Minnesota. I will be here next week, 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. to talk about online applications, how to stop getting rejected. So spread the word, invite your friends. If you're a Minnesotan, they're free. We'd love to have you. And with that, Angel, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Hi everyone, and thank you so much, Catherine. And just let me say, the strategies that you've recommended as part of your presentation are just spot on. And so I'm hoping that all of our participants today are really strategic and intentional about incorporating all of those into their own planning and research. So I've got more good news for our participants today. So I'm going to be taking just a couple of minutes to describe additional resources through your local CareerForce locations, but I really want to make just 2 points that I hope are takeaways for you. And that is, first of all, there are many more resources available to you, particularly through CareerForce, than really the general public is aware of. People who are going through unemployment, going through this transition, job searching, this is not something that you do on a regular basis. So there's that old saying, you don't know what you don't know. And that leads me to my second main point, which is we have professional staff available at our local CareerForce locations that are there to help you. They're there to help you with those resources and with your planning and your job search. So even though our CareerForce locations are closed to the public right now due to COVID-19, again, staff are working. Many of us are teleworking, as I am today, and you can get connected by phone and by email. So Art will be sending out a list of those specific 50 local CareerForce locations around the state of Minnesota with those specific emails and telephone numbers. So as you can see on the slide, our staff can help individuals, whether you are just getting started, you are trying to figure out what your next step is, what options are available to you, all the way up to those individuals who have clear direction, you know exactly what you want to do, but you could really benefit by having a professional review your resume. So our staff can help really throughout that continuum, exploration and research. So if you are strategic and intentional about your approach to this process, You'll also be doing probably a fair amount of research. And again, our staff can point you to those good sources of information that can help you assess those interests and skills and get really up-to-date information on occupations in demand and even what kind of training that those might require. So also, of course, our staff are very experienced in helping with resume development and also interview preparation. So other good resources to take advantage of. And this is all, of course, at no cost to you. As that last bullet point on this slide suggests, staff are also available to get you connected to specific resources that are tailored to individuals that have specific needs. So if you could advance the slide, Catherine.
Yes.
Thank you. So I just want to mention, again, I'm going to be briefly describing just a handful of the programs and services we have available at your local CareerForce location. There are many more we don't have time to address. I would be remiss if I didn't briefly describe the unemployment insurance program. We may have callers or participants on the meeting today that have never been unemployed or have never been unemployed before. And so you might not be aware that there is actually this program that provides a temporary partial wage replacement for individuals whose hours have been significantly reduced or who are unemployed through no fault of your own. When our CareerForce locations are open, our staff are able to assist individuals to get connected to that online application process on our Career Lab computers or using our telephone to access the customer service line. Right now, when our CareerForce locations are closed, all of that application process is available online at the website shown there. And unfortunately, our CareerForce staff are not able to address any specific questions related to your unemployment application or your benefits or your account status. So again, we know that there have been challenges in accessing our customer service center and the online application just due to the volume. So I'll just encourage you to be very patient about that. This slide is also describing a couple of additional programs tailored for specific needs. If you are a veteran, we want you to know that we value your service. And in fact, you have priority at our CareerForce location. So if you are a veteran that has some additional significant barriers to employment, I want you to know that we have veterans representatives that serve our local CareerForce locations who can assist you specifically with those barriers. I know Catherine mentioned the dislocated worker program earlier. That's also described on this slide, and I included in the chat box, which also you'll receive that transcript later, but there is a link to the dislocated worker program. If you're someone, for example, who is changing careers and you could benefit in getting new employment by picking up a credential, for example, you certainly would want to explore that dislocated worker program. Or if you plan to continue in your current field, but you need to update your skills, get some additional training in your current field, that program is incredibly useful for those and provide a variety of services. One of the programs we talked about on the webinar this morning, an individual asked about starting their own business. There is a program called CLIMB that's administered through the Dislocated Worker Program. It stands for Converting Layoffs into Minnesota Business. And so specifically for those of you who aspire to be entrepreneurs, that is very worth checking out. And could you advance, Catherine?
Yes.
A couple of additional programs that are often in demand through our CareerForce location. Vocational rehabilitation services. So this is a program that provides highly trained, specialized staff to to work with individuals that maybe have mental or physical disabilities that create barriers for them in gaining and sustaining employment. So these are typically much more intensive services. Our youth services, there's a couple of different programs, and I can tell you they have been around for a very long time. They have made a difference to thousands of young people in the state of Minnesota. These are programs and services that I would really encourage participants, tell your friends and family about these offerings that are available to Minnesotans, and again, at no cost. The last one that's listed there is minnesotaworks.net. And I often like to share that I used minnesotaworks.net to find my three previous positions in different communities in Minnesota. And that was before I ever came to work for the state of Minnesota. So I've used it successfully for a very long time. This is Minnesota's labor exchange. So it's an online talent matching service. Think of it as a searchable resume and jobs database. Employers create accounts on this site, and they use their accounts to not only post jobs, but they are able to search for resumes in order to fill their positions. So as a career seeker, you are able to use this platform to upload or create up to 5 different resumes. That allows you to target a resume to maybe a couple of different occupations that you might be interested in. You can also create a customized search on this site, and then also save that search and turn on email notifications so that whenever an employer posts a new job that matches the search criteria you've created, you'll get an email letting you know that new job has been posted. You can also search for jobs using one of the resumes that you have on the site. And that's really going to get you some nicely focused results. So after today, Art will be including a how-to guide that just quickly shows you some of the best features with MinnesotaWorks.net. So on to the next slide, Catherine, thank you. So we just talked about MinnesotaWorks.net, and again, I encouraged you to think of that as an online talent matching. It's a searchable database of resumes and jobs. CareerForceMN.com is really our career resource platform. So there's a number of things you can do with that site. You do not have to create an account in order to access so much of the very good content on that site for career seekers. But if you do create your own account, which is very simple to do, there's some additional features that you can make use of. For example, if you are trying to determine a good next step right now or what your options might be, you can take some interest and skills assessments and also save those once you've got your account created to your personal dashboard. So those assessments can then lead you to some specific occupations of interest, and you can set those with your goals and your experience. After that, it can also connect you then directly to some of that labor market information about those occupations, and you can review demand for those occupations of interest, educational requirements, wage ranges, and so much more. Anyone can visit CareerForceMN.com and get some excellent content and strategies about marketing yourself as a career seeker. So that includes help with resumes, resume development. There are templates, there are examples of resumes, and also, of course, preparing for an interview. So again, there are more programs through CareerForce. State services for the blind, help for former offenders, the Senior Community Services Employment Program, and more. So know, again, there are more resources available than you know today. And number two, we have professional staff at our CareerForce locations that can help you with your job search, with your marketing, and also accessing those resources. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Angel. And we've got a couple of questions that are really aimed at some of the things that you shared. And you may not have an answer to this, but first of all, can I just give a shout out to the state of Minnesota? I have to tell you, I've been here 22 years and I love this state. And it's times like this right now during the coronavirus pandemic that I look at the resources that are available for all of us and I am absolutely floored. So way to go to all of you in the nonprofit world and the government that have done so much to support all of us. So question for you, Angel, do you know about SSDI benefits plus integrating work? They probably need to go and talk to the Social Security and Disability benefits company to know how many hours they can work paid, right?
I'm very happy to say that again, we do have professional specialized staff through many of our CareerForce locations that work with a program called Ticket to Work. And that specifically addresses Terry's question about integrating work and employment income with receiving benefits. So it is a pretty specialized service because as you said, Catherine, there are many things to consider regarding Social Security disability benefits and employment income, but great opportunity for somebody to ease back into the workforce without necessarily putting those benefits at risk.
So Terry's asking about Duluth. What I would say to you is when you get the email from Art, and you can go to careerforcemn.com and find a location near you, reach out, pop them an email, call them and ask them if they have a specialist on staff there around SSDI or any other special programs. And I promise you, if they don't have somebody on site, they will find somebody that you can talk to. Some other real questions I want to just celebrate. So Terry, I was talking about contracting and consulting, and she said she's actually about to sign on the dotted line for a really cool project right now in the Duluth area to do Zoom and phone interviews to find out what people's healthcare needs are, health support needs in the Duluth area. So very cool project, really important work. And guess what? She got it through her network. All right, so other questions that I want to handle here today. Let's see. Time gap. So Judy is going to take advantage of this time off, or maybe she has to have the surgery to get a knee joint replacement surgery. And her question isn't just for Judy, it's actually for all of you. Her question is, how do I handle a time gap on my resume? How do I handle that when I hit the streets and go out there looking for the next job? So for those of you that were furloughed or laid off due to COVID-19, for about the next 6 to 9 months, you can get away with saying, oh, geez, my company got hit really hard with COVID-19. And, I've been looking for a new opportunity as we ease out of that. That's probably all you're going to have to say. People are probably not going to push you because they get it. They're living it. And if they didn't get laid off, they know dozens of people who did. So that's probably all you need to say. Therefore, Judy, I don't think you even need to get into your healthcare situation. And the truth of it is, it's best to keep your healthcare um, scenarios to yourself during a hiring process, unless and until it becomes a deciding factor about employment. So I really don't want you to bring up chronic illnesses, knee joint replacement, anything like that in the first or second interview. First of all, it's none of their business. They're not allowed to not hire you because of health concerns. The only time it should come up in conversation is when you're about to sign on that dotted line, if and only if it's going to be a factor in your employment. So if you, for instance, can't lift over 30 pounds and you're concerned you may have to do that in your job, well, by all means, at that point, you need to bring it up. But you know what's really cool? At that stage of the hiring process, if they've already said they love you and they want to hire you, they're going to have to behave well and make accommodations for you around your disability or your health situation. So, Judy, I don't think you even need to mention your knee joint replacement injury. If it comes up in conversation, you can say, you know, turned out to be a blessing. I had this time off and I took advantage of it to get a knee joint replacement, and man, am I good as new. If you're going to mention a health situation, you want to ease their mind and let them know you're good as new now. Unless that's not true, which brings me back to what I said right out of the gate. None of their business, not an issue until it becomes the stage where you have to decide whether or not you can take that job. That's my 2 cents on that. It is illegal to discriminate against somebody in the hiring process because of a health issue or a disability. That doesn't mean that the human beings on the other side of the hiring desk aren't influenced by things. And even if they're trying to be good human beings, in their subconscious, it might become an issue. So don't bring it up until you have to. All right, so other questions here. Elizabeth wants to know about cover letters. Elizabeth, here, good question. We are going to get into, that's a question that'll make a lot more sense when we talk about online applications next week, because you're gonna, every day you're applying, hopefully you're not applying online every day, because you have a 12% chance of getting hired by applying online. Silk Road Technology studied 13 million applications, and 12% of them got jobs through online applications. Now, there are jobs out there, and you can get hired that way, but you got to make sure you understand how to apply online, which is what next Tuesday's job club's about. Cover letters, quick and dirty. Don't waste your time writing a cover letter if you're applying online unless you know the job's open, you're fully qualified, and you know there's a living, breathing human being waiting on the other side of that job posting for your application. I don't have time to get into the details about why it's hard to get applied online. If you're going to write a great cover letter, it's going to take you an hour or two. Don't do that unless you know a real human being is going to read it. That's my quick and dirty on cover letters. We'll talk more about it next week. All right, couple more questions here before we wrap up. Julia. So Julia said, great luck getting interviews, but keeps getting the bridesmaid dress, or rather the groomsman. Anyway, you're not getting offers, and I bet you're not alone. In fact, I bet there are a lot of people that are on with us today who are getting to the dance floor, but they're not getting that job offer. You know what that is? That is a sign that it's time for a mock interview. Da-na-na-na-na. Where can you do mock interviews? Well, guess what? Your CareerForce location has counselors that would love to do a mock interview with you. In fact, they would love to do a mock video interview with you. But don't stop there. They're a little bit busy these days. Reach out, see if you can set an appointment. In the meantime, a couple of other ways for you to do mock interviews. Did you know that LinkedIn has interview practice? You can do a mock video interview on LinkedIn. Did you know that you can do a mock interview with a friend? In fact, I highly recommend you do a mock interview with a friend over Skype, Zoom, Vimeo, I don't care, FaceTime. You need to practice, practice, practice. The only way to eliminate your nervous tendencies and your ums and your rambling and your freaking out and all of the things that can happen in the heat of the moment of an interview, the only way to get over those things is to practice. Practice, practice, practice. All right, so other questions. Let me see if I can take one or two before we wrap up. Duluth, let's see, Tammy. How about, okay, if you were caring for another person, so I think Tammy is following on with what to do if you've been a caregiver. If you've been a caregiver for an extended period of time, I cared for my parents for their final 7 years. I was also trying to work full time. Truth is, I wasn't working full time. I was running my own business. I just couldn't. If I had been full time caregiving and not trying to run my own business, which some days I wish I could, number one, do not apologize for that. If you're a caregiver for children, for somebody with a disability, for elderly parents, for a friend, for a loved one, it doesn't matter. If you are a caregiver, I want you to wear that badge proudly. Do not apologize for it. But you do need to be ready to talk about the fact that why you're no longer a caregiver, why are you available now to work? Are you available part-time, full-time? And ease their mind that you are available to meet the demands of the job. If you are still in a caregiver situation and the truth is you really don't want to work, but you have to, then you're going to have to figure out how to talk about that. Don't lie, but keep some things to yourself and just talk about, you have availability to work part-time and you're excited to get back to work because boom, boom, boom. So we're getting into the weeds about how to prep for an interview. What I encourage you all to do, reach out to the resources for interview prep at CareerForce MN, okay? Get out there for resources. See if you can get a mock interview scheduled with your CareerForce location, do mock interviewing with your friends. Go watch the replay of the video interviewing job club that we had last Tuesday. I've got an interview guide there, and I talk a lot about how to prepare for that interview and how to practice for that interview. So you can go watch that replay and get that guide. You're not alone. There are so many places you can go for help with with your interviews. Art, I'm running over on time again. I see it's 4:18, so I'm going to let you honor everybody's time today and take it away from me. And I look forward to seeing all of you and your friends. Please invite your friends to next Tuesday's Job Club. Art, take it away.
Thank you, Catherine, and thank you, Angel, for all the information. By the way, those looking for a little more interview help, there is a interview class being held tomorrow at 1 o'clock, 1 to 2:30, and you can go to the virtual and interactive CareerForce site for that. I will actually add it to the follow-along material that I send everybody after this presentation is over. Speaking of that, you will receive Catherine's guide. You will receive some of the material that Angel had talked about. But I'll also give you a couple links from the things I was sending you throughout the chat that were relevant during the time. Just some quick links in case you weren't able to copy those. Please join us next week for online applications. Until then, I wish you the best of luck in your job search and have a great day.